Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Just waiting for a few more people to come in through from the waiting room. I hope you're all having a lovely start to your Tuesday morning. Not too long until the end of the year break. Okay, I think that's most people in now, so let's make a start. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who are joining for the first time, my name is Steph Kershaw. I'm a research fellow at the Matilda Centre for Research in Mental Health and Substance Use. I'm located at the University of Sydney, and I'm also project coordinator for the Cracks in the Ice online toolkit. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar. So before we begin our webinar, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture. I'm currently on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, home to the beautiful Gaddi trees, and I pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. I further acknowledge the traditional owners of the country on which you are joining on today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. So before I introduce today's speaker, I just wanted to let you all know that as participants, you are in listen-only mode, and that means that we can't see or hear you. However, you will notice that there is a Q&A button on your dashboard, so down the bottom, and this is where you can type in questions that you have during the webinar and send them through to us. And we'll be taking questions throughout today's webinar. So we want to kind of keep things a little bit informal, have a bit of a chat as we go. So please feel free to pop questions in as they come through into your head, and I will read them out to Aunty Marge and Jai. So I hope you're all looking forward to today's presentation. It's my great pleasure to introduce Aunty Marjorie Anderson, who is an Aboriginal woman. She was born and grew up in Redfern, and her mob is from northern New South Wales. Before joining Lifeline Australia and co-designing and delivering 13 Yarn, Aunty Marge has worked at Sydney Harbour Foreshore Authority, Department of Juvenile Justice, Tourism New South Wales, the Olympic Coordination Authority and the ABC. And then right before she joined 13 Yarn, she also worked at the Aboriginal Housing Office in a number of executive roles. And Aunty Marge is really passionate about building resilient, sustainable communities. And she is currently New South Wales Aboriginal Woman of the Year. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And I'll just also introduce Jai Natty, who's with us. He's a Gamilaroi man from Northwest New South Wales and digital media coordinator from 13 Yarn. And Jai's focus is to reach out to people through social media and digital assets to promote 13 Yarn and let people know about resources to support their emotional and social well-being. So welcome to both of you today. It's lovely to have you with us.
Thank you for having us, Stephanie.
So I'll hand over to you, Aunty Marge. Tell us all about 13 Yarn.
I will take you on the 13 Yarn journey. I started at Lifeline in October 2021, and Lifeline had been in partnership with Gaia Dewey, who is the peak body for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander mental health in Australia. And they got some funding for a crisis line for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And the line was supposed to really replicate Lifeline and make sure that we had a culturally safe space for Aboriginal people to ring. So the first thing I did was say to government, I'm not going to be able to deliver it in 3 months. No. So I said no to government, and they got a bit of a shock because I don't think people say no to government very often. But I said, I'm not going to do this quickly. I'm going to do it right, because we're only going to get one chance to do this. So I went out, and it was during COVID lockdown. So I had to do a lot of my co-design with community over Zoom and Teams, and there's other ones that I used. I got to be an expert at every sort of webinars or, virtual meetings I could get onto, and worked and made sure that I co-designed with the diversity of the Aboriginal community. For example, I made sure that I had urban, remote and regional Aboriginal people. I had people, LGBTQI, youth, elders, style and generation, people who have got lived or living experience of suicide and its consequences, people who have got a lived or living experience of addictions, and also, Aboriginal mental health professionals. Like, I really made sure that I had the diversity of the community in my workshops that designed 13 Yarn. I took what the community told me, and I went back and did the first design. And I've got my first question, I think, Steph.
Yes, I was just wondering, did you find it hard to find people to engage with who wanted to talk about developing sort of a lifeline-like helpline, or were people something, they were really interested in being part of the process?
Look, Mob have been talking about this for a long time, so it wasn't hard to get the community excited about the delivery of this line. And I'm pretty well known in the community across Australia. I've been in a number of national jobs. So I had contacts all over Australia who then reached out for their contacts. So I didn't find that hard. And as I brought people on, because I was sort of designing and developing the plane while I was flying it. So while I was doing this, I was bringing people on to work with me, such as Nikita Ridgway was my first hire. And Nikita did the fabulous design of 13 Yarn, and she's a marketing guru. She's a one-person marketing team, and Joy works to Nikita. And then, I brought on Alan, who's the community engagement person. We had a service delivery lead. We had Jai coming on to do social media. So I was hiring all these people while I was developing 13 Yarn. So we're sort of flying the plane and building it at the same time. But I think that's the easiest part for me, is the getting feedback from the community on what they want. And what I did then is I took it back to the community and I said, did I hear you right? Which is often the step that people miss in co-design. They go out, they might go out with a blank sheet of paper, which is the way you do co-design. You don't do it the government way and say, well, it's got to fit within these policies. That's collaboration. Co-design is when you go out with a blank sheet of paper and say, tell me what you want. But the next step is to go back and make sure you heard right. And in the meantime, people get the chance to think about things, and they often give you nice little tidbits at that second design meeting. And then I thought we had it pretty right by then, and we started to build the line. And we took our first call on the 16th of March 2022. So the line is not yet 4 years old, and we've taken well over 90,000 calls. We're going to hit 100,000 calls in January, we think. So it is very, it's trusted by the community, but I think the trust in the community has been built by the team living out of suitcases for the last 2.75 years, 2.75 years, because what we've been doing is going out to community, remote, regional, urban, Aboriginal people we've reached out to. We give them an opportunity to ask us about 13 Yarn. They see who's delivering 13 Yarn, so they know it's not gammon. They know that it's solid. It's 100% Aboriginal employment, and so it's culturally safe. And one of the big things about 13 Yarn is there's absolutely no judgment. One of the things we got fed back during the design process is that Lifeline's great, but it's often, middle-aged white women who volunteer for 13 Yarn, or older white women, because they're the ones who have the time to be able to volunteer. It's not generally people, peer groups of people who ring the line, because they're too busy trying to survive to be volunteering anywhere. So they felt, number one, that they didn't understand Aboriginal culture, and they had to teach them about their links to community, their responsibilities in community, the responsibilities in their family makeup, because we don't have nuclear families, we have extended families. and we see our aunties and uncles as our mothers and fathers as well. So explaining all that and explaining, our connection to country and the responsibility of leaving this earth in a better place for future generations and leaving Aboriginal communities in a safer space for next generations before they could get the help they need. And they often felt a little bit judged by the people who were on the line because it doesn't matter how much training you do, if you don't have lived experience, you don't know that space. And they do their best, but 13 Yarn does it better because it's mob answering the phone. And I don't know of any Aboriginal families who haven't been impacted by suicide and its consequences, by DV issues, by Aboriginal people. I actually call addiction in the Aboriginal community because most of it comes from trauma, and it's Aboriginal people self-medicating to get away from that ongoing trauma in their brain that leads to addiction. So that's the sort of thing that that people in Lifeline wouldn't know, that people that we've got on the lines do know about. And they're very, very highly trained. What we did is we looked at the framework that Lifeline uses, and it's a very good framework. It's called the CARE framework. And we put a cultural lens over that. And then we put a cultural lens over their training as well. So, we're always improving the training and we're always improving the framework. But the fact of the matter is that our staff do the Lifeline training, plus they do 2 extra modules. And it's really around the complexities of social and emotional wellbeing in Aboriginal communities and the complexity of intergenerational trauma in Aboriginal communities. And we wanted to make sure that every Aboriginal person understood that, because if they've got not everybody has all the lived experiences. So we wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page when they were answering the phone. And when we talk about addictions, I'll tell you a funny story. We had a guy ring up and he got this good job, but he was getting paid monthly instead of fortnightly. And so for his first fortnight, that was a good fortnight. He really had a great time and ran out of money by the end of the fortnight. Excuse me. I gave up smoking like 2 years ago and I'm still coughing. He rang up 13 Yarn and he said, I've got no durries and I've got no yarndi. For those of you who don't know, durries are cigarettes and yarndi is marijuana. And they said, I've got another 2 weeks till I get paid again. So what the staff were doing, they were talking him down, getting him to do some breathing and, relaxing himself so he could get through that day. And he rang every day for that fortnight. When he came to the end of the fortnight and he goes, I get paid tomorrow so I can get more yarndi and more durries. And the crisis supporter said, right, I want you to go down the supermarket when you get paid and buy some snack bags, the little plastic bags. And then what I want you to do is buy your durry and buy your durries and buy your yarndi, and then work out how many days till get paid again, and then divvy it out, put little bits in each bag so you know how much to have each day and still have some left at the end of the month. It's budgeting of a different sort, right? And he said, all right, I'll do that. And we thought that doing that with that might teach him to do that with his money as well. But it was probably an easier way to do it. And the first month he ran out 4 days before because he said, a couple of Saturday nights I did have 2 bags instead of 1. And then the following month it was like 1 day before. And then we haven't heard from him since. So he's learned how to budget. And see, that would never have happened on Lifeline. That would never have happened because it would have been about, oh, no, you've got to give up those drugs. And, it's about harm minimisation and coming from trauma informed rather than being judgmental and saying, no, you have to get off those drugs. We made sure he was safe. Yeah.
Absolutely. Harm reduction is so important. And it's also about meeting people where they're at, which I think is, something that is often overlooked. In terms of the people who are answering the phones, is it all sort of elders? Is it younger people? Is it across generations? If you pick up the phone, who's answering on the other end?
Well, we've got a very, very mixed bag. We do have older people, we have men, we have women, we have a couple of young ones on there, but they've got to be quite, it's hard to get, we want people with life experience, but often you can get some young people who are well beyond their years, who are, because we've got to make sure that these people are resilient before we put them on the phones. Another thing we do is really look after the people that are answering the phones. And we teach them very well that when somebody rings up, to absolutely sit in their space with them. Sit in, like emotionally sit in their space with them. But when the calls are over, get up, put your Teflon frock on, have everything slide off, and then you're ready for the next call, because you can't be taking anything home with you. And we make sure that we check in with staff before they get on the lines to make sure that they're in the right headspace. And we make sure at the end that we debrief staff so they're not going home with anything in their heads that they've heard that day, because some of the calls can be quite distressing. And during the referendum, we did give our staff some extra support, and that support was really around staying strong and making sure that your Teflon frock was really firmly on, because that's what I always call it, or the Teflon coat, or whatever you want to call it, but I always call mine my Teflon frock. And make sure that you're not taking on other people's trauma, because we, as Aboriginal people, we all hold enough trauma in our lives without taking on anybody else's. But during the referendum, I had some extra social and emotional wellbeing put in place for people external from the organisation, and not one of our crisis supporters reached out for it, which tells me that the safety that we've got built into the design is really safe for our crisis supporters.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's so good to have those additional supports, but also know that, that what you're already doing is enough to support people. Do you offer any kind of other cultural safe training to other organizations in mental health? Or do you have any sort of people that you recommend to give mental health culturally safe training?
Look, Lifeline officers do mental health mental health first aid training, which is a really good training across the board. For domestic violence, we do domestic violence training through DV Alert, it's called. You can look them up on the website, and there is an Indigenous DV Alert as well. And if you're looking for other training around suicide prevention, I really recommend Assist and I Assist, which are both really good training programs for being able to spot what's going on early, and then having the tools to be able to help people in your community. We really like that program because it, I mean, even if these people just go, look, if you're feeling no good, don't want to talk to anybody that you know, ring 13 Yarn. So 13 Yarn is part of all this training as well, every single training that I pulled out, and as a tool for people to use afterwards. So I think that all of those trainings are great. Highly recommend the Indigenous DV Alert training if domestic and family violence is an issue in the community you're in. And I highly recommend I Assist training for Aboriginal communities and Assist training for non-Aboriginal people.
Yeah, great. Getting back to 13 Yarn, someone had a question around, is there any resources that you know of around elders abuse, particularly elder abuse and methamphetamine? As we know, sometimes methamphetamine overlaps with aggression and violence and can be a concern for a lot of people.
There are some resources around elder abuse, particularly around threatening suicide. I know MACCHO, the Mental Health Association of Central Australia, has some really good animations on their website around that tells the elder that you don't have to be threatened in that way, and a way to talk people around it. There are other all sorts of tools on WellMob around that as well. WellMob are a great website for all sorts of resources around anything that you could think of, and they're always building as well. Do we have a Jai? I'll have to ask Jai. Do we have a fact sheet around elder abuse, Jai, as yet?
Not yet. There's some around the sort of the substance misuse and stuff like that, but that one's in the works as well because we want to partner with somebody on that one and make sure we sort of get that one right as well.
Yeah. Jai does our social media, and I'm going to have him talk about that soon. So yeah, there's a heap of resources out there. 13 Yarn hasn't developed any as yet. One thing we'll be working on is we're going to have an animated self-help tool, and it's going to be largely aimed at men because men won't ring us up, and they can go in and there'll be a self-help tool there to help them, to give them some tools to help themselves. And so we'll be working on that. We did get some funding from Ipsos to develop that, which is a market research organisation. And yeah, so we're developing tools all the time. So keep your eye on our website because we may have a tool, some tools or some advice around that. I know I've been part of conversations, particularly with banks, around fiscal elder abuse, which is largely what a lot of it is. It's like taking their money, and how they're watching out on it. And I sit on the CommBank Community Council, and I know that the banks are very active in that space as well, and that's great because that's the source. And if they see any activity that's unusual, they stop the person taking the money out of the person's account.
Yeah. I just want to go back to a point you said before, that you said that you were finding it hard for, men were finding it hard to call 13 Yarn. I was wondering if we could dig into a little bit. Do you think there's particular reasons for that? And this also sort of ties into a question that's popped up around what kinds of patterns are you noticing within mob and community around, like, what are people calling about?
Yeah. I think with men, it's a shame thing. It's like, I've got to be the head of the family and I can't reach out for help. And what we're trying to get across to men is that it's really smart, brave men that reach out for help. It's soft men that go and have a permanent solution to a problem that could be fixed. So we're really trying to take the shame out of talking about not feeling good. And one community in the Central Desert really attacked this head on, and they said they were losing their young ones. And so the elders and the senior lawmen all got together and said, you know why they're doing this? Because they don't see us being vulnerable. They don't see us asking for help. So they've got no role models. So what they thought they'd do is change their behaviours and show the young ones that when they feel bad, they're reaching out for help, and openly show that they can be vulnerable. And it's really turned that community around. It's the suicide rate has plummeted, and that's purely because the elders changed their behaviour. So it's interesting, and Jessica just said role modelling is so powerful. It is a really powerful tool. You can't be what you can't see. And
Absolutely.
and that's what and Aboriginal people in communities are really turning their own communities around with things like that, and it doesn't take any funding.
Yeah, and I guess that's one thing that we come across quite a bit in Cracks in the Ice around, how can we best support local communities uh, within 13 Yarn? Is there any sort of, can you refer clients to local counselling and support services? Um, yeah, is there any sort of localization factor to 13 Yarn, which I know is a big question for a national lifeline?
No, that's exactly what we do, and that's exactly what we're there for as well. The mental health system is such a complex system to find your way through. And I know that firsthand. I've got a transgender granddaughter, and trying to get her the help that she needed, through the gender centre, and trying to get mental health support for her was really interesting. And I work in the space, so what we are is a front door to the mental health system. So people might ring us up and they might need just counselling, and we go, right, okay, these are the options. Where would you like to reach out to those services? Because people often don't want to do it in the same town that they live in. They might
Yeah.
want to go to the next town or the city or something. So we say, where would you like us to recommend services? And then what we do is we give them a number of services. We say we highly recommend this one. This is the first one where you should try, but here are some others just in case. And I always believe Aboriginal people should have choice. And what we do is we get people, we de-escalate people, and then get them to work with us on a safe plan. And that safe plan might be referral outside, because we don't do ongoing support. We're a crisis support agency, so we're not counsellors. So when people ring us up, it's supposed to be one off. It's often not, but it's supposed to be one off. And ongoing help needs to be from a professional person, from a clinical person like a psychologist, psychiatrist, a counsellor. Although we get a lot of calls for loneliness, and those people we might link in with the local, you know, men's shed or women's group, or CWA, or whatever groups in their area. So it depends on what the people need, where we send them, but about half of our calls need ongoing support outside of what 13 Yarn can provide.
Yeah, and I guess we're kind of talking about that one-on-one support, but I remember you mentioning earlier how you travel to communities. Do you also sort of do community workshops? And is that kind of, do you find that helpful in sort of breaking down barriers and reaching people where they're at?
Yeah, we don't really do community workshops. What we do is just get out and have a yarn with people in community about 13 Yarn, because none of us are crisis supporters. And it's actually unsafe for people, when you're out and about and in a crowd, to start talking to us about what their problems are. So what we do is we stop them and take them aside and say, look, have you got a phone? You should ring 13 Yarn and talk to one of our crisis supporters, because we're not trained crisis supporters, and it's actually unsafe to do it here. Can I take you to a quiet spot and you can ring 13 Yarn? And if they don't have a phone, I give them my phone. It's a free call all over the country. Anywhere you call from, it's a free call. And one of the biggest things about 13 Yarn is confidentiality. So you could ring from Broome and get answered in Nowra, or you could ring from Mungandai and get answered in Cairns. And that's because we're only, 3 or 4% of the population. And so a lot of us know each other. So to really maintain confidentiality, we've got to have the calls go around Australia randomly. And we tell our crisis supporters, if you think you know the person, say, look, I'm unsure whether I know you or not, but your voice sounds a little bit familiar. I think it's best if I hang up, and then you ring again and get a different crisis supporter. And
Yeah.
so that's what we say.
And With 13 young, do you have any sort of youth-focused programs? Is there any age limit, for someone who can call up?
Anybody can call up. It doesn't matter what age you are. Anybody can call up, and you'll be taken through the same framework, and which is the care framework. And the care framework is broad enough to be able to suit anybody, and it just ensures your safety at the end of the call, and it ensures you're empowered enough to have a plan to keep yourself safe.
Yeah, yeah. And do you have any sort of templates for safety planning after a person has attempted suicide?
No, we don't have templates as such because they're all help seeker led. But what we do have, and this will be of interest to all of you, is a Lifeline Australia has an app called Beyond Now. And Beyond Now is a really good space for safety planning when you're feeling well. So, and it's got an Indigenous section in it, so you can go in, and if your client's Aboriginal or you're Aboriginal, you can go into the Indigenous section, and you can build a safety plan for yourself that will then be on your phone. So when you're in crisis, that plan's already there. You don't have to think about it. You can remember you've got a safety plan, and you go, I've got that there, I'll use that now. So we encourage people to go in and build themselves a safety plan while they're feeling well. And that way it's there for when you're not feeling well. And we encourage people to ring 13 Yarn early rather than later. So we say to kids, when you get that icky feeling in your guts, that's anxiety. When it's making you feel no good, that's anxiety. Give us a ring then. Don't wait until you're out of control. Ring us then, and we can have a yarn, and maybe we can take that icky feeling away from your guts. And that's the way we talk to kids in the community.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of evidence that the sooner you reach out for help, the better the health outcomes or the situation can be for you. So yeah, I think that's an amazing point to drive home. We've got quite a few questions. So many questions, Aunty Marge.
Yep.
But I'm also just conscious that I want to give Jai a space to talk about social media.
All right.
Jai is obviously very happy to have his bit skipped, so we might just do a couple more questions and then in terms of when you're talking about if someone who's working at 13 Yarn recognizes a caller and they suggest that they call back, do you have any sort of stats around how many people do call back, if that's a barrier for anyone? Is there a sort of a way to transfer them back into the queue?
It's never happened yet.
Amazing.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, so yeah.
And Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander healthcare workers, can they call to debrief and talk about sort of vicarious trauma? Is that something that's covered by 13 Yarn?
They can, yeah. Look, you mean with our staff rather than?
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the whole point of the support that we put around our crisis supporter, is to make sure that they don't go away with that vicarious trauma, that they don't walk out the door with and it's a real skill. Like, it's a skill that nurses have to have and doctors have to have, and police who go to car accidents and DVs and things like that. They see horrible things. Anybody who hears or sees horrible things has to have the tools to be able to say, you know what, I've just got to leave this here. I've got to leave this in my workplace, and I've got to go home and not worry about it. Otherwise, you burn out very, very quickly.
Yeah, the Teflon frock, as you mentioned before, is very important, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Someone was asking, could you just repeat what the safety plan site is called again, or perhaps, Jai, you could put a link in?
Beyond Now.
Beyond Now.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. And as we're coming up to the end of the year, obviously it's a time where people take some time off. We often spend a lot of time with families and communities. Is there any specific resources available for mob who might be feeling a little bit anxious or worried around, this time of the year?
It's interesting because Lifeline's numbers go way up at Christmas time.
Mm.
Ours drop.
Oh.
Because what happens is people are often away from home working. But what happens at Christmas time is mob go back to family and their country, take their shoes off and get their feet in the dirt and go and visit the elders, which then stops the elders ringing up because they're lonely. Like our numbers plummet at Christmas time, and it's the first Christmas shocked us. It took us by surprise. But when I sat back and thought about it, I thought, mob are together. They're home. They're on their own country. They're rebuilding their souls. So they don't need us. But they'll need us in January when they go back to work. And for sure, the numbers go straight up again in January.
So it's all around that connection and disconnection.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And that's really interesting. And I think it also highlights the importance of, that what 13 Yarn's role is around providing a resource that's been co-designed and culturally safe,
Yes.
and is responsive to community needs. Is there anything about 13 Yarn that you haven't told us that you want to tell us yet, Aunty Marge?
No. I think I've covered it. And I do want to get Jai to talk about social media because it's a really important arm for 13 Yarn to reach out to community and also talk about some of the trolls we get, which is absolutely disgusting to have trolls in this space. Yeah. So, I'll give Jai some time to talk.
Everybody, thank you. So, sort of any questions I think you just want to drop in there as I go along too, but it's basically pretty straightforward. Aunty Marge mentioned the trolls and stuff like that. So, that's a big part of sort of what I do is, I guess, monitoring and restricting that as much as I can as well. I guess being sort of Aboriginal page as well, like Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander led page is the main reason. As Aunty Marge said, our calls sort of go up January time. So I think sort of around the 26th of June, Survival Day, and that is when our calls sort of skyrocket, don't they? And our social media gets blasted as well. But it's really good too. I think Aunty Marge spoke earlier on sort of lived experience in that. So with me, I sort of have had a lot of free reign on social media. Not free reign, I guess, just I get to speak how I want to speak, use the language that would resonate to mob too. So that's been really successful up until today, I think. The socials have been sort of really impactful too, alongside of our social media as well. Like it's helped build the brand and build 13 Yarn, let people sort of see some faces behind who are running the service as well. And our recent podcast that just started this year, we've done 3 episodes at the moment, and the last one was the next one that we're filming in about a week's time is a youth-based podcast, so that will come out probably around February. So that'll be sort of a really good resource there. We've got somebody coming along that's about 22, 23 years old and works in the youth mental health space, somebody that does sort of similar stuff and has just won a National Youth Award. We thought she would be a great one to pull in. So one's from Western Australia, one's from Lismore, and another from sort of the mid-north coast, but does uni and has lived here for a while. So we try to get that diversity in there as well. So I think, so that's really good. And the last one, we were speaking about sort of men reaching out and stuff. So the last one, if you go on and have a look on YouTube or our socials, we'll have some short highlight reels on there, and that was based around men as well. That was a really good one. We got some great feedback, and people are using that sort of as a resource, I think, to get men to reach out a little bit more as well. So I think that'd be a great one for you as well to go have a look at, and maybe subscribe to our YouTube too. Give us a follow on socials and have a look through our Facebook and Instagram about what we sort of get up to as well. Earlier this year, we sort of did a little collab online campaign with the Cracks in the Ice mob here, and that was a really, really big impact on our audience, and I think the Cracks in the Ice audience as well, with their First Nations resources that they've developed. So yeah, I think that's worked really well, and I think we might circle back, because what we do with 13 Yarn as a national service, crisis support as well. We always say we sort of don't define what a crisis is. Like Aunty Marge telling that story earlier about that one of our help seekers that used to run out of his smoko. That's a big crisis to him, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
anything big or small, anybody can reach out for what it is too. And I think we've done some posts in the past too around sort of substance misuse and self-medicating and stuff like that as well. So I think circling back around to that every so often on our socials has a big impact for our audience.
Yeah, thanks, Jai. And I think also having the collaborations, I know that it was amazingly helpful to Cracks in the Ice, because it also helped us, we hear things around what are concerns in communities, but sometimes, it can be hard to know what is actually going on in the ground. So I feel like the more collaborations, the more connections you have, the more you're able to sort of talk to people and be responsive to what people need.
Yeah, that's right.
Someone would love to know where to find the podcasts, and also if you have any sort of resources that they can distribute to promote 13 Yarn.
Yeah. Cool. So online, we welcome all and anyone to sort of promote that as well. We generally put out some highlights leading up to the episode being launched, but it's YouTube. Subscribe to our 13 Yarn YouTube channel, because there's lots of stuff on there as well, and we're building that out. Spotify,
Rob's
Apple
just
Podcasts.
put it up.
Oh,
Rob's just put the address up. Yeah.
So yeah,
amazing.
on the 3 major streaming platforms as well, and that's actually worked really well for us as well. The guys that do that for us monitor some of the analytics for us, and the analytics that I've got on hand as well. So that's really great. So we've done LGBTQIA mental health in that space. We've done a racism discrimination one, and truth telling, and then the men's one. So they're the 3 episodes we've done so far.
And if you want resources to hand out, you can order resources from our website. We used to, we don't have the budget or the staff to be able to send out resources all over the country. So what we've done is we've set up that you can order and pay for the resources, and then send them out yourselves. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all our free stuff too. And then we've got the fact sheets on there. They need a little bit of updating, so I'm in the midst of doing that at the moment. But there is the fact sheets on our website as well for people to have a look at. There's 10 of them. So as Aunty Marge asked earlier, and if we've got ones on elders abuse and that's on our list of the next round that we're going to be developing as well.
Yes, budget and capacity. It's always a limiting factor, isn't it, to what you can get done. I guess sort of touching on that point around racism and the complexities around communicating difficult topics on social media. With the recent passing of the treaty in Victoria, someone wants to know, what's your perspective on how that will influence or impact 13 Yarn? Do you think it will help create a positive outcome?
I'll take this one, Joy, if you like.
Okay. Yeah.
Look, we worked with the people who were putting the treaty through, I must say, because they were expecting the same thing that happened with the referendum, with the rise in racist behaviours. And so we worked with them to ensure that the community down there was safe during the whole development of the referendum. I don't think it will impact us directly. We get lots of calls from Victoria, and that doesn't seem to have changed. The number of calls coming in from Victoria doesn't appear to have changed because of the treaty, and all gone down because of the treaty. So I think it's a bit of wait and see, but I don't think it'll have a direct impact on us. What did have a direct impact on us was the neo-Nazi attack on Camp Sovereignty. I think that the impact of the reaction to that as well was really telling in the Aboriginal community. What the community was saying to us is, the people who did that should have been charged with a hate crime, number one. Number two, if it was any other group that was attacked, there would have been outrage at all levels of government There was no outrage whatsoever. And the media kept calling it an alleged attack. And they're having that word alleged in there. And when I was interviewed on the ABC, I turned around and I said, "Have you seen the footage? What is alleged about that? There is no alleged attack. There was an attack." And I said, and the lack of outrage from the general community was really telling to Aboriginal people, and our numbers went up really swiftly after Camp Sovereignty down there. But they're starting to normalise again now. But those neo-Nazis marching and Aboriginal people just weren't feeling safe. And that's the sort of thing that impacts our line. Good news doesn't necessarily impact our line. It's the bad stuff that does.
Which is, it makes logical sense, but is also kind of sad in a way that, obviously shows that we need to do more to better support and show our Aboriginal and our First Nations communities that we care about them. And I guess with 13 Yarn, where would you like to see it in 5 years' time, Aunty Marge? You've been there since the very beginning, and I have to say I'm so impressed that you pushed back on that 3-month co-design. I've been in that position. It's not an easy one to be in, but to do it genuinely, you do need that time, and I think it's amazing that you pushed back and you were really solid on that.
So in 5 years' time, I want to be retired.
Fair enough.
So I want to get things done quickly. I want us to have any services built in, any suicide prevention services needed to be built into 13 Yarn over the next 5 years. I want to have a text line, particularly for young people and women in DV situations and Aboriginal people with a disability. With a hearing disability, would rather use text than the line. When Lifeline started their text service, it shows that it's a completely different cohort that reaches out by text than reaches out by phone. So the phone calls didn't go down, but the text service is our fastest growing service in Lifeline. So that shows us we need a text service for 13 Yarn. When we go out to the community, that's what the young ones are telling us as well. And we need more, I think, animated toolkits on our website for all ages and all communities. I'd like to see, particularly around youth and LGBTQI. So we'd really like to build that as well. And it's funny, I had a bit of a joke the other day about getting a bus to go around remote communities, and maybe we need to do that but then we don't have the people to staff it at this stage. So we'll see what happens. But in 5 years' time, I think I'd really like to start thinking about retirement.
Maybe you could have a retirement bus, do a tour, raise awareness of 13
Last
Yarn.
hurrah.
Yeah. As we talk about young people, and this is also a question for you as well, Jai, with the upcoming under 16s ban on social media, is that something that's on 13 Yarn's radar about, thinking about how we can better support our young people who might be impacted by that?
Definitely, yeah. So 33 Creative have developed some resources for the e-safety commissioner. And we've had a bit to do with both of them in the past as well, when I've done sort of some youth demographic posts, probably not too recently, but yeah, in the past, we worked with e-safety. But I've started on the website. I haven't really done much to boost it in terms of putting in sort of any paid ads or anything behind it, because we wanted to see what the engagement and stuff was going to be like, and it doesn't seem to have had too much impact on our socials yet.
Okay.
It's something that we're all talking about. I'm going to do a meeting at the end of the week, and one weekly until the end of January, with a guy from the Department of Health who funds a lot of these things, and obviously heavily involved in that. So at the moment, we're not really seeing too much. So yeah, we'll have to just wait and see, because it's sort of rolling out, I think, this week, isn't it? Snapchat, I think, has already started it. And I think the messaging that a lot of them are trying to get across is it's not a ban, it's just a delay. that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, like you'll be right again once you're 16, I guess. But I guess it's just going to unfold over the next couple of months and see how we go, because I dare say that it is an addiction for a lot of young people. So, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, I guess, what happens here.
Yeah, it is a bit of a wait and see. I don't think young people think about the impact until it actually comes.
Yeah, that's right. And maybe the hype around the build up and the preparation hopefully has done its job enough, or for some people anyway, but I guess everybody's going to react different too.
Yeah.
Just a couple more questions and then I'll let you get back to your day. But before I do, I just wanted to read out a lovely piece of feedback that we've had from someone who just said that they didn't have a question, but they wanted to acknowledge to both you, Aunty Marge and Jai, and send a thank you for such an honest and real conversation. So, I know these things can be difficult conversations to have, but they are so important and so valued.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other question is, so we've got people who are obviously allies online, so non-Indigenous people, and can people call 13 Yarn to gain advice about cultural safety or cultural safety situations for consumers that they're working with? Or is there a more appropriate way for an ally to kind of go around how to find a best way to support people that they're working with?
Look, I think the best way to behave in a culturally safe way is link yourself in with the Aboriginal community locally. We don't really generally give that advice. We're not an advice line. We're there for people in crisis. So the best way to do that would be to reach out to your local Aboriginal organisations and ask them how you can work with them to ensure that your service is culturally appropriate for your local demographic as well, because it'll be different wherever you're from, because we're all different nations and we all act differently. It's not a homogenous group, so best to link in with your local community.
Yeah. And does 13 Yarn sort of provide consulting services at all for organisations to improve their process or policies, or is that a Aunty Marge on top of her day job?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I've changed jobs. So I'm not the national manager of 13 Yarn anymore. I'm the head of Indigenous Affairs for Lifeline Australia. So absolutely, you can reach out to me. We have been doing because really what we're trying to ensure is that no matter where an Aboriginal person goes, it's culturally safe. So it's in our best interest and in Lifeline's best interest and in 13 Yarn's best interest to have all organisations to be culturally safe, to give Aboriginal people choice. Because sometimes they don't want to go to the AMS because their auntie works there. They might want to go to a local doctor, and it'd be great if the local doctor was, culturally safe for people to go to as well. So, yeah, reach out to me. And we can work something out, I'm sure.
Yeah.
My email address is Marjorie, Marjorie, _Anderson with an SON @lifeline.org.
Great. Thanks, Aunty Marge.
That's
and thanks, Jai. So is there anything else today that you think you'd like to share? We've only got a couple of minutes left. I guess one thing that kind of hit home for me personally was around the sort of shame and stigma aspect. That is something that we often see on Cracks in the Ice. And it was a reason why we developed those lived experience around videos around methamphetamine that have been such a great partnership with you got to work with on that and promoting that. And so I guess we've talked a little bit about the shame and how that impacts men, but, are there other sort of ways that we can reduce shame among communities and sort of make sure that people feel safe to call 13 Yarn or access other support services?
I think people have to see that when you're feeling no good, it's the same as, feeling no good because you got a broken arm. We'll talk about a broken arm, we'll talk about a broken leg, but we won't talk about a broken soul or a broken brain. So, and why can't we? That's what I would like to see. I would like to see the shame taken straight away from it and say, because I think people think if they speak about addiction or they speak about mental health or they speak about anything like that, they're tarred for life. And so they hide it from everybody so that they're not tarred with that brush. And it's true. You heal from a broken arm, you heal from a broken leg, but you heal from a broken brain as well, or a broken soul, or an addiction. You can heal from that. And it should be treated like any other disease, or, like if you've got, diabetes, you have to take drugs, and nobody's ashamed of being diabetic. So why are we ashamed of having to take drugs because we have depression or we have ADHD or we have schizophrenia or, or we have an addiction and we're taking something to help us through, dealing with that addiction. So, yeah, I think if we start as a community, and it starts with each and every one of us, to start speaking about mental health and addictions in a way that they're solvable issues. They're not something that will tar you for the rest of your life.
Normalise those kinds of yarns, and that's where the no judgment comes into it as well.
Yeah.
I've supported close family members through their drug use, and I think it's because they can see that I don't sort of have any judgment on that, as opposed to other family members or friends as well. So
yeah. And I think that's a really valid point. We need to be thinking about this as just any other health condition and having those conversations and not being ashamed of them. Well, thank you so much, Aunty Marge and Jai. Is there any other last minute tidbits that you'd like to get in around 13 yarn? Anything that you didn't get a chance to mention?
No, if you've got any Aboriginal clients, or if you're Aboriginal out there and feeling no good, ring 13 92 76. And I do have to go because I have another meeting in 2 minutes.
You do indeed.
Check out our socials and give us a follow on that, and our podcast too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. And we'll send out some of those links with the recording of the webinar as well. So thank you both so much for your time today. Thanks, Aunty Marge. Thanks, Jai. And thanks, just everyone. To end on a lovely piece of feedback, someone else just put through and said, thank you for such an honest and educational conversation. And they found this really helpful, and they're excited to see the YouTube videos.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day. If this discussion has brought up any concerns for you, as Aunty Marge said, please feel free to call 13 Yarn. Otherwise, reach out to us at info@cracksintheice.org.au. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day.
Bye.
All the best.
Bye.